I've introduced Kickstarter quite a bit, but just to say that we have a, as in addition to being a rewards-based crowdfunding platform, we have a focus on creative projects. Our definition of creativity is quite expansive. It could be like arts and film and music, but also, we consider product design or innovation, creative act. But yeah, we have always had this specific focus on creative projects because largely because our founders actually were, a graphic designer, a music journalist, and an artist. So yeah, this kind of focus has always been really important to us. So yeah, I mean, I was, talking a little bit about our model, but I've kind of already touched on that. And again, this idea that backers support things on Kickstarter, not just because they want to kind of receive a reward, although we do operate on a rewards-based model, but it's like the idea that they can be part of the story and that without the backer involvement, that thing won't exist in the world. So it's really about this collaboration between backers and creators. Just some stats around, kind of Kickstarter. We've had 180,000 projects funded, 4 billion pledged to these projects, which is just huge. 17 million backers, and those backers really are from all over the world. A really international community. And it's had a really big impact in all of the different categories. So again, like I mentioned Hair Love, but every single year there's a Kickstarter funded film that's been nominated for an Oscar, and we've had 2 of them that have won. This is one of them called Period End of Sentence, which won Best Documentary Short. I think it's available on Netflix if you want to check it out. Artists who have been, raised funds on Kickstarter to produce artworks have been collected by, famous institutions like the MoMAs and the Tates of the world. Also, well-known artists like Ai Weiwei have used Kickstarter. And Kickstarter has opened up entirely new categories of innovation. So actually, one of the previous speakers I saw mentioned Oculus Rift. Oculus was obviously a really big early success story on Kickstarter that opened up this entire new category of creative innovation in VR. So, really great to see that. And this is just a kind of spread of all of the 15 categories. You can see every single category has received a lot of funding. Even our smallest one, like dance, has had 15 million euros pledged directly from creators to backers in that category. But our 2 biggest categories are design and technology. And I mentioned that I'm kind of a specialist there. So it's sort of my passion and my background. Yeah, it was actually kind of started by this, the idea of a crowdfunded product was kicked off by this product, which is called the Glyph. It's like the little attachment there, not the iPhone, obviously, but the little attachment on the iPhone. And it was a design studio who they realized that that the iPhone was a really powerful photography tool, but that there was no kind of accessories to for example, attach it to a tripod. So they had this idea, and instead of putting it into production and making thousands of them and then trying to hawk them and sell them, they just thought, hey, we'll go to Kickstarter, and if we can get a minimum order quantity to go to a factory and put this thing into production, then we'll do it. And if we don't, then we won't put it into production, and we never have to have boxes of these things in our garage. So yeah, again, it really that was around 2011, and really opened up the entire idea of a crowdfunded product. Yeah, we've just seen it across all types of things, and these are all Polish projects actually. So everything from Madita to a number of great Polish projects here. And then I mentioned the other big category is games in Poland. Games is big internationally, but in particular in Poland, we've seen some really amazing titles that have come out of this country. So yeah, really awesome to see. And then just quickly to wrap up and say that, we talked a little bit in our conversation around why, what is the kind of model and what does it offer to a creator? This idea that it reduces barriers and helps people take risks. So the example I use here is a woman who wanted to make some action figures for girls that promoted better body image types and sort of better messaging for young girls. And she was basically told no by every single person in the toy industry. So she came to Kickstarter and was able to found a successful company and still continues to make these toys. It helps you build a community around your practice. So whether that's in this case, a company called Artifon, who was making a new type of musical instrument. It was kind of a MIDI controller. And they wanted to do it really in conversation with musicians. Again, they didn't want to just make this thing and put it out there and find that musicians had no need for it. They wanted to build it in conversation with musicians, have them try it, see what they could do with it. So this idea of like building a community around your project as you go. It's really changed what kinds of things can come to life, because people can essentially, again, like get a minimum order quantity to put something in production in a way that they could never do in the past. So, you know, it's kind of okay if you want to make like, if you're like somebody who's making pottery, and it's fine that you can make one, you know, vase or bowl or something. A lot of times, like hardware products like the Oculus Rifts or this one, for example, you need to have a minimum order quantity. So Kickstarter kind of allows you to get all of those people up front and to achieve that. And the final thing here is like creative independence. It helps people just to have to maintain this sense of kind of independence in their practice. This is a design studio called Studio CW&T, and they do a lot of client work, a lot of product design for clients. But they just like want to be sure that they are always able to kind of release their ideas into the world, and to kind of, yeah, just develop an independent practice. So yeah, that was really important to them to use Kickstarter in that way. And then, yeah, just for backers, again, these are things we touched on, that backers learn how things are made. They see the kind of inspiration and the passion behind things, which can be really powerful. So there's kind of a benefit for them too. And just to say that, like, I've talked about all the positives, but what does it demand of you? We kind of, again, touched on this at the very top of our conversation. It requires particular skill sets, you know, different things that people might not be used to. So, you know, strong community management or a good story and storytelling ability. So yeah, I just always like to make sure that people kind of understand that it's kind of shifting the type of skill set, I guess, that's kind of required from creators if you work in this way.